Hey everybody, quick update on the Camaro project. I've been working on the soda blaster here with little success. I've spent a lot of time trying to get this thing to work, but we finally had a breakthrough this weekend. My buddy came over and rejiggered this whole bottom end of this thing to try and get it to work. And what we found was this guy right here typically is sitting right here, and then this is where the purge valve goes. So this is what allows you to clear it out if it gets clogged up. The problem is right in about here there's a tiny little nozzle through here to let the soda through, and it's only about yay big, tiny little thing, and that thing keeps getting clogged up. So typically what you'd have is this, and then below that is where this T-fitting right here would go, where the air comes in from this line and then out here. And what we were finding was you just couldn't get enough flow of soda coming out of this port here, and so you just get air and no soda. So what we did is we moved it around. Instead of putting the purge here, we put the output there. So this, if you've got this thing wide open, there's a nozzle on the, or a valve on the other side, you get a ton of soda coming out here, much more than they designed it for. But if you throttle it back, it's the equivalent of having this little guy here, but now you can open it up to whatever value you want. And once we did that, then we found we were able to get tons of soda out of this thing, and we're actually finally able to get the thing to work. So if you have one of these, you might want to consider doing the same trick there. That seems to work much better than putting it on the bottom where the thing is supposed to go. So give that a try if you want. And here's an example of the soda blaster when it's working. Unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of time to actually play with this thing this weekend, but this is where I had taken the flap disc to it before. You can see it's clean, but pretty rough. And then this area here, this was hit with the soda blaster. You can see the metal's just beautiful there. There's some really thick primer or something on here that's pretty hard to get off, but in the places where we worked on it, you can see it's just beautiful as opposed to the flap over there. So very nice, and since the soda doesn't take off the factory coating, this won't rust. This will. So it's still pretty slow going, so I still haven't decided whether I want to do the whole car this way or not, but I'll give it a try. I just hit a few random spots around the car to see how it worked. Yeah, it worked pretty well. I tried up in here, up through here. Actually found there was Bondo up in here. There's a big dent right here. I don't know how the heck that got there. Tried the inside of the car here a little bit. So it's working pretty well. But like I said, it's pretty slow going. The other thing that I did, after listening to suggestions from a bunch of folks, I built myself one of these big water filters. Turbo Cobra had mentioned this, 265 Chevy as well. A few people had recommended this, so I went ahead and built one of these things too. And of course what this allows here is this is 50 feet of pipe. The inlet is here, and as the air goes through this thing it cools, and as it cools the water will drain down here and collect in these little collection valves here, and then you can open up the valves to drain the water out. And that works pretty well. Then on the end there I have my desiccant filter as well. So there's a lot of water filtration here, so that air coming out of there is very, very dry now. I looked at the water filter on the actual soda blaster and there's no water in it, so that's about as dry as you can get. The other trick that I did though is here I have the input from my compressor, my 220 compressor. What I did is I added another input here, and I have another compressor. I actually have two compressors. The other one is just a standard 110, and it doesn't put out, it's like 5 CFM or something. The bigger compressor I bought was 10 CFM. But now you can run these in tandem if you want. If you want to run the second compressor, you can open this valve up here. I heard some water fall out of there, so that shows you how much water is in there. Then you can run them in tandem. And if you're not familiar with how that works, if you run two compressors, you don't get double the pressure, you get more CFM. The compressors are only capable of putting out so much pressure, so even if you put them two together, you're not going to get more pressure that way. but you will get more CFM. Let me show you the compressors over here. So here's the two compressors I have. This is my 220 that I bought here. As I said, this is a 10 CFM unit at 90 psi. This one over here is rated at about 5 CFM at 90 psi. So this was not good enough for me to really do anything with, and this one was borderline. Putting the two together, when you have something that's really high CFM, that actually works really well. And we found running these two compressors together on the soda blaster, we could actually keep it running with the second to the largest nozzle in there and keep the tank pressurized at 75-80 psi the whole time, so it would actually keep up, which is pretty good. It couldn't do that before with just one compressor, so that's a pretty neat trick. And of course, if you don't need that much CFM, you just don't hook the second compressor up and just use the one. So hopefully next weekend I can actually get around to stripping the paint off this thing. I also bought some chemical stripper as well, the aircraft stripper. So I may give that a try as well and just compare the two and see which one I prefer. But anyway, hopefully next weekend I can actually get around to getting some paint off of this thing that I can start thinking about doing some body work. Thank you for watching.